So, starting off today's show, I want to talk about Antonio Brown. And he actually pleaded no contest in court on Friday, and he's not going to receive any jail time. He's going to do some community service, psych evaluation, anger management, and in the eyes of the law, it's not a felony offense anymore. Like, he doesn't get off completely, but at least one of the legal or criminal hurdles he had in coming back to the NFL, he actually jumped over on Friday. And it's not something that's going to put him in prison or anything and prevent him literally from getting on a field. And to be honest, I don't think that many people talk about this or know this right now, but Roger Goodell has actually really backed off and shied away from disciplining players lately. It takes a lot to get suspended by the NFL now for violating the personal conduct policy. They took it very seriously for like 5 years, I feel like. Then there was a run where Goodell thought his big responsibility, other than helping the NFL print money and being a puppet for the owners and doing whatever he could to find every little penny of profit for the league, he also thought it was his job to protect the NFL shield and be the judge, jury, and executioner. And he made sure it was in agreement with the players. Look, I don't need to be in the eyes of the law or anything or a judge to say you're guilty or to suspend you. Roger Goodell was saying I could pretty much do what I want, and the players gave away that power and handed it to him. And in recent years, Goodell hasn't really exercised it that much or used it that much. And in fact, the last time he suspended a player for violating the personal conduct policy was 2018. It's now June of 2020, and I don't think in 2 years every NFL player has just turned good. I don't think every single player is carrying a bag of groceries for old ladies down the street. I think Goodell just decided that he was not going to make that one of his calling cards as NFL commissioner, that he was going to try to work with players and not rule them with an iron fist. Let's provide them with resources and provide them with help and counseling. Let's do that instead of punishing them. And so I say that because I think there's this sense out there that Antonio Brown is going to get the book thrown at him by the NFL. And to be honest, I really don't agree with that. Roger Goodell actually talked at the Super Bowl this past year, and he sounded almost like a mother who had lost touch with her son or daughter and was using that microphone to urge him to come home. Hey, I'm here for you. I still love you. Come home. And so there's this cloud hanging over Antonio Brown's head, and maybe that's what makes him radioactive, that there is some fear that because the NFL has not completely finished investigating him, no decision has been made, that he is going to get suspended for a long time. But, like, just to be real, I don't really agree with that. And that brings up the question here. Will your team take a shot on Antonio Brown? Should your team take a shot on Antonio Brown? Do you think he should get another chance to play? Do you think he should play in the NFL in 2020? He's not going to jail. The incident that got him cut in New England, he is dealing with that civil suit, but he's also countersuing that woman for defamation, so he is fighting back legally. And what I'll also say is this. To his credit, Antonio Brown has pretty much surprisingly maintained a pretty low profile through all this. And this is the same guy that you saw the video of him cursing out the police officer and the guy who was addicted to social media so much that he hired his own hype team. And when you look at the scenario we're in, given the quarantine and stay-at-home orders and the way our normal lives have really changed over the past few months, you would think Antonio Brown is somewhere cooped up in his mansion with not much to do besides work out, run routes, and chill with his kids, that kind of thing. You would think he would get frustrated or impatient and maybe go on one of his many social media platforms and say something stupid or something dumb or call out someone else that would really jeopardize his NFL career. And that's something he's done really since he's been in the league, is jeopardize his NFL career. And that's basically what kind of got him traded out of Pittsburgh. That's what got him cut by the Raiders and then cut again by the Patriots. I don't know. He may mature, and maybe he did grow up a little bit. Maybe he's realized that he has to have his head screwed on somewhat straight in order to get a chance in the NFL. And so, as the days add up of Antonio Brown without incident, I do think he does become more attractive to teams. He's not old. He'll be 32 next month. Jerry Rice at 32 actually led the NFL in receiving yards. Terrell Owens at 33 led the NFL in receiving touchdowns. I think Antonio Brown is cut from the same cloth as those kind of players from a pure football on the field perspective. He's not cut from the Jerry Rice cloth as a teammate. He's more like Terrell Owens in that regard. But from a pure ability standpoint, in his early 30s, I still believe he could be one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. The last time we saw him before he went completely wild, and the last time we saw him before he blew up everything and scorched earth, he was catching a touchdown pass from Tom Brady, and he was balling out with the Steelers. So I would maybe take a shot on him. I would think maybe at most there's a very small slap on the wrist from the NFL. I think it might even be like a pinch, not even a slap. I think it could be like maybe a 1 or 2 game suspension. And if it's more than that, that's fine. I think you could still live with it. But when you look at it, I've seen Antonio Brown destroy teams, and I've seen him destroy relationships, and I've seen him treat important people like crap. I've seen him take gasoline and a match to everything he built up in Pittsburgh with the Steelers. And I've never loved his attitude. I've never been his biggest fan or his biggest advocate, even when he was starting for the Steelers. I did always think he was a little phony. But what I also will say is this. There are a bunch of teams that I think if you're trying to turn things around, you got to ask yourself, what are the good reasons and what are the bad reasons for signing this guy? And I do think in a couple cases, the good outweighs the bad. The NFL has always been a second home for those that can play, even if they've got rap sheets and a litany of mistakes in their life that in other professions and careers would deem them toxic or untouchable. So the NFL has literally accepted guys that have killed people. The only thing Antonio Brown has killed is teams, or broken up teams. He's older. He's put kind of a gag order on himself. But let's just say you're a team like the Baltimore Ravens.
If you're the Baltimore Ravens, you have the MVP quarterback and the best run game in the NFL, and a coach that does a pretty good job in Jim Harbaugh of managing wacky personalities. Guys that are out there. Guys that aren't coaches' favorite players usually. We're not talking about students that bring the apple to the classroom desk every day. I'm talking about guys like Marcus Peters, Jimmy Smith, who are the most recent examples of that. Terrell Suggs. Those players that have performed well in Baltimore, and they've got one of the worst wide receiving groups in the whole National Football League. They've got Antonio Brown's cousin, Hollywood Brown. They've got Willie Snead. If I'm the Ravens, I haven't won a playoff game since 2014. I don't want to waste Lamar Jackson's rookie contract years. I want to take advantage of the cheap salary for the MVP quarterback, and I also have to keep in mind that Lamar Jackson may not age like some of the other star quarterbacks in the league because he's going to be a 1,000-yard rusher for 5 years or maybe even 3 years from now. And he proved he was an accurate passer, and he wasn't just a running back or a wide receiver like some said about him when he was coming into the league. But I think you have to keep in mind, he also threw for 30 touchdowns, and he can sit in the pocket and makes plays. But what puts him ahead of everyone else is when he shows you the threat to run. And who knows how he holds up? There's no guarantee you play that way and last in the NFL. Take a guy that's a lot less talented than Lamar Jackson, like Marcus Mariota. He broke his leg, and that was the start of the downward spiral of his career, and that's why he lost his job to Ryan Tannehill, and that's why he's backing up Derek Carr in Vegas right now. So if you're Baltimore, you have to take advantage of this window, and you have to run down the Kansas City Chiefs, the defending Super Bowl champions. You're probably thinking, if you're the Ravens, if we're in a situation where we get number one through the AFC North, and then are lucky enough to get to a point to play a team like the Kansas City Chiefs in the playoffs, can we just play defense and beat them? Probably not. So if you're the Chiefs, or if you're the Ravens, I believe, I think you got to fight fire with fire, and they just don't have the weaponry right now at wide receiver. So that's why for the Ravens, I absolutely think it's worth a risk to sign Antonio Brown. The other team I think should do it is the Eagles. They don't have a number one receiver. Alshon Jeffrey just isn't really that good. Plus, he couldn't stay healthy last year. Deshaun Jackson, at this point in his career, is just really a deep threat. And your two best playmakers, if you're Carson Wentz, are Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert. Two guys that are very good, but both tight ends. I think you should give Carson Wentz a true number one receiver. Doug Peterson is also a super friendly player coach. He has won a Super Bowl in his career, so why not? I think he could take him. The T.O. thing worked out with them in Philly. They went to the Super Bowl with him the one time he was on the team. And I understand it's going to be a little short-lived with Antonio Brown. He's really not built that much to last. He's going to move from team to team. I don't think Antonio Brown, though, right now is at a point where he is so far gone and is such right now in the moment of persona non grata where he can't play in the NFL again. When we're on the topic of guys getting back in the league, and believe me, we have a lot in the last couple weeks that have come up, like Colin Kaepernick and Cam Newton. So how about Antonio Brown? One criminal case is behind him now, and the league hasn't even suspended him. The league hasn't technically even banned him from playing. So I'm going to ask you guys, would you take a shot on him? He's one of the most polarizing players in all of sports in the entire NFL, and some people think all he does is cause problems. You might think he's such a great player at a discounted price. Maybe you're listening to this right now and thinking about the team you cheer for, thinking about your wide receiver depth chart. Do you want your team to sign Antonio Brown? Do you think he's worth it? The biggest storyline over the NFL in the past 48 hours has been this. No contest plea. This is in his rearview mirror. He's not lashing out. He's not going to go after Big Ben, Bill Belichick, or Tom Brady or whoever on social media. He's kept his mouth shut. He's still working out and waiting for a chance. Does he deserve it, though? Would you give it to him? Do you think he would make your team better? Or do you want to see buyer beware at this point, probably so cheap that he is definitely worth it? I think when you also look at it, some of the other teams, the 49ers have been a team that have come to mind. I think it would be good. I just don't know if he fits in with Jimmy Garoppolo. And the Packers, same thing with the quarterback. Is Aaron Rodgers going to be willing to take a guy like that? So those are the four teams, but mainly the Eagles and Ravens are the two teams that stand out to me in terms of teams that could and maybe should take a chance on Antonio Brown. San Francisco also hasn't really built that much of a culture yet, even though they just got to the Super Bowl last year. They also drafted a receiver in the first round this year in Brandon Ayuk. So if you're Antonio Brown, would you want your team to take a shot on him? You guys know. Let me know.